I believed I knew everything about my wife. We had shared 27 years together, and I trusted every word she ever told me. Then she died in what police called a tragic accident. 3 days later, a notary handed me the keys to a luxury penthouse that had secretly been transferred into my name. She had always forbidden me from asking about her business trips. I planned to sell the apartment without ever looking inside, but the moment I opened the front door, my entire world collapsed. Someone was already sitting in the living room waiting for me. My name is Robert. I was 68 years old when my wife Grace suddenly passed away after a highway collision. Losing her felt like losing the only person who truly understood me. Friends kept telling me time would heal everything, but every morning the silence inside our house became louder. A few days after the funeral, I received a phone call from a notary asking me to come to his office. I expected paperwork about insurance or savings. Instead, he placed a polished set of silver keys on the table. He calmly explained that Grace had left me a luxury penthouse in the city. The property had been purchased years earlier and was now legally mine. I stared at him in disbelief. We had always lived modestly. I had never heard about any apartment. When I asked how she could afford it, he simply replied that every document had been prepared correctly and that Grace had instructed him never to discuss the details. As I drove home, memories began flooding back. Grace often traveled for what she called business meetings. Whenever I asked where she was going, she smiled gently and said it was better if I did not worry. I trusted her completely and never questioned her again. For several days I decided I would sell the penthouse without even visiting it. Keeping it felt like holding on to another painful mystery, but curiosity slowly became stronger than grief. I finally drove into the city and found the building standing among expensive towers with security guards at every entrance. The receptionist looked at the keys and welcomed me as though she had been expecting my arrival. That alone made me uneasy. The elevator opened directly into the apartment. The place was breathtaking. Marble floors stretched across enormous rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline. Yet something felt strange. The lights were already on. I slowly pushed open the living room door. An elderly woman sat calmly in a chair holding a framed photograph of my wife. Before I could speak, she looked into my eyes and quietly said, "I have been waiting for you." My heart pounded. She introduced herself as Eleanor. She explained that she had been Grace's closest friend for over 30 years. They had met while volunteering at a shelter for families escaping domestic violence. Grace had never traveled for business. Every trip she took was actually to help women and children rebuild their lives after terrible abuse. She used her own savings to secretly support them. The penthouse was never her home. It was a temporary safe place where families could stay until they found permanent housing. I could hardly breathe. Eleanor opened a cabinet filled with handwritten journals. Every notebook described people whose lives Grace had quietly changed. She had paid medical bills. She had funded school tuition. She had purchased wheelchairs. She had helped strangers start over without ever asking for recognition. Then Eleanor handed me one final envelope. Inside was a letter written in Grace's handwriting. "My dearest Robert, if you are reading this, then I am gone. I kept this part of my life secret because I never wanted praise. Kindness is strongest when nobody is watching. If you choose to sell this place, I will understand. But if you choose to continue helping others, then a small part of me will always remain here beside you." Tears rolled down my face. That afternoon, I canceled every plan to sell the property. Over the following months, I worked alongside Eleanor to continue Grace's mission. The penthouse remained a place of hope instead of becoming another luxury investment. One evening, a young mother hugged me after receiving the apartment keys. She whispered that because of this place, her children would finally sleep without fear. At that moment, I realized Grace had left me something far more valuable than real estate. She had left me a purpose. Years later, people still ask how I managed to survive losing the love of my life. The truth is, I never really lost her. Every family that walks safely through those doors reminds me that love does not end with death. Sometimes it simply finds a new way to change the world. I thought I had inherited a luxury penthouse. In reality, I inherited my wife's greatest secret and her greatest act of love. That single decision transformed my grief into purpose. If this story touched your heart, remember that the greatest legacy is not measured by wealth, but by the lives we quietly change. Please subscribe to the channel, like this video, share it with your friends and family. Leave your thoughts in the comments because your support helps bring more unforgettable stories.